represent us in the States. Mike was instrumental really in pushing forward environmental, energy-related, and climate efforts at the county level, as well as in Sacramento, and most recently was instrumental in getting the housing package, affordable housing package, before the governor that was signed this last Friday. And while we're here to discuss climate and energy legislation, I do want to say that we have an incredible representative that represents us from the Golden Gate Bridge up to the Oregon border in Senator Mike McGuire. So please, ladies and gentlemen, big warm welcome for Mike.
Well, good morning. How's everybody doing? I also want to take a moment to acknowledge Efren Carrillo. We would not have Sonoma Clean Power without the amazing advocacy and leadership of Supervisor Carrillo, and I think we can give him a round of applause and say thank you. He was there from the beginning through the end and continues to be a fierce advocate, and so grateful for local power done our way in creating local jobs. So thank you so much, and for all of your work. I just want to also acknowledge Ann Hancock for all of her amazing work and the legacy that she has created here in the County of Sonoma. And all of you, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today, and really excited to be with you. What I'd like to be able to do, if it works for folks, is give a brief update about what's going on, what's cooking with the California economy, take a look at our clean energy sector, significant growth, by the way, within our clean energy sector here in California, talk about some threats. And I don't want to get too political here, but California does business a little differently. I don't know if you've noticed in Washington, D.C. at the moment. It's a little awkward. But talk about those threats that are facing us, whether it's issues of climate change or immigration or public education. Get into talking about some schools, talk about housing and some infrastructure as well. Does that work? So we only need about 2 hours. So it should be, again, we like to keep it awkward. All right, so if it's okay, I'm just going to jump right into it. You know, we've all heard about this resistance to the current administration here in the United States of America. And I think it's much more than just a resistance, but it's actually showing that California can work for everyone. And we all know that we're facing big challenges here in America, but California is truly leading the way on so many different issues and in so many different sectors. And while some may say that California is anti-President Trump, I think it's much different than that. I think that we are, frankly, just getting the job done. I think that we're protecting our values here in California. And we are leading the way when it comes to a strong economy. And while Washington, D.C. is currently at a standstill on so many issues, frankly, that's probably good, California truly is the worldwide leader when it comes to our economy, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to focusing on healthcare and protecting our environment. So let's talk about our economy for a second, because I think that is the most important part. We are America's economic engine, and here are some numbers to be able to prove that. Between 2012 and 2016, we created 17% of America's new jobs. Now, we only are 12% of the entire nation's population. When we take a look at our nation's GDP, 25% of our gross domestic product is coming from the borders of California. Again, we are America's economic engine. When we take a look at our turnaround, in 2010, we had 12.4% unemployment in this state. We are $27 billion in deficit. I was on the Board of Supervisors with Supervisor Carrillo when we had to make these cuts. And now we're at the lowest unemployment rate that this state has seen in 16 years. We're 0.01% from record low unemployment in the state of California. And what that means is if you're not working at the moment, frankly, you may not want to. And we take a look at the most significant growth areas here in California, it's going to be the San Francisco Bay Area. It's going to be the Inland Empire. And it's going to be the greater Los Angeles region. And we are on the verge of becoming the 5th largest economy in the world. We're going to be taking over Great Britain, our local economists expect, by 2018, which is significant here just for our small little state. And we now have more manufacturing companies in California than anywhere else compared to any other state in the union. So what we've heard is this narrative that Texas is leading the way when it comes to job growth in manufacturing. 2 words, hogwash. Let's take a look at what California has right now as far as the manufacturing sector. We keep hearing that our manufacturing sector is dying. Again, simply not true. We have 36,000 manufacturing companies in California right now. That has grown since the end of recession by 8,000 companies. 8,000 companies. The biggest growth when it comes to manufacturing, minority-owned businesses, which is significant and, again, a trendsetter for the rest of the union. The second state as far as the most populous when it comes to manufacturing jobs, the great state of Texas. They have 17,000 companies who are manufacturing in that state. We are nearly double of Texas. We're number one for small business. We have 3.7 million small businesses who call the Golden State home. Over the last 5 years, those small businesses have had a 12.2% increase in their business throughout the economy. And we have the strongest rainy day fund in our state's history, $12 billion. In fact, we have overfunded our rainy day fund by $2 billion over voter-approved mandate. The reason why I bring this forward is because there has been so much talk about California and how we're turning into the next Greek Empire, right? Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. And we are solid in our financial footing as well. And we have been able to prove to the rest of the world it's not just about developing a strong economy, but we can also focus on environmental protections, and we actually believe that climate change exists here in California. Am I right, everybody? My goodness. So here we go. We just passed the strongest climate law in the United States of America. And when we are pulling out of the Paris Accords, California is going to continue to move forward. And despite the toxic politics of DC and denying that climate change exists, the Golden State passed cap and trade, which is going to be the best tool in our kit to be able to lower our GHGs by 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. And we're focusing on data-driven analysis to be able to invest in those areas that's going to reduce our GHGs. So let's talk about that for one moment. So number one, we're focusing on automobile pollutants. 60% of our GHGs in this state is coming from the automobile. So we're focusing on that. Number two, zero emission automobiles. You're going to see a significant financial package that's going to be moving forward next year on electric vehicles. It didn't make it this year. There was not a whole lot of love for that just because of the $3 billion price tag. But I think that you're going to see our next auction coming up this fall, coming in ahead of schedule, and you're going to see a significant investment. And by the way, Sonoma Clean Power is leading the way in this state when it comes to incentives of being able to get EVs on the road. They still only represent about 2 to 3% of total automobile purchases in this state. We have to increase that by 10 over the next 5 years. Sustainable agriculture. We know 6% of our greenhouse gas emissions in this state come from cow farts and cow poop. How many times can you talk about cow farts in the morning? And so we're moving forward on a plan to be able to reduce our GHGs when it comes to manure management. That's going to benefit our area as well. Forest health. The best carbon sink that we have, frankly, on the West Coast are the redwoods. They capture more carbon than any other tree species on Earth. And out of the $200 million that's going to be invested next year, we're going to receive about $140 million of that just in the North Coast when it comes to forest protection, sustainable forestry practices, and preservation as well. And it's about damn time. And here's the other piece. I'm the only Democrat in the entire state Senate that represents a rural district in California. Everyone else are Republicans. And I gotta say, I'm a big believer that one of the reasons why President Trump won this presidency is because the Democratic Party forgot about rural California and rural America. You take a look at rural counties in this state, they lead the state in unemployment and in poverty levels. Out of the 5 top counties when it comes to poverty, we have 2 in our district, Lake and Trinity. All folks want are a good job. They want access to health care. They want good schools for their kids. And this party, the Democratic Party, has to deliver for all 58 counties and for the rest of this nation. And that is why we've also been able to bridge the divide and work in Republicans to be able to get smart policy done. So another example of that is the state fire tax. So in the climate deal, rural Californians were spending $80 million out of their hard-earned pocketbooks to be able to subsidize CAL FIRE. $80 million. We had 96,000 households that were providing about 40% of that 80 million just in the North Coast. So working with Republicans, we're finally able to eliminate the fire tax. It's coming now from cap and trade, because what we've seen over these massive wildfire events is that significant carbon is released when we have these disastrous events in the state like we had in the Valley Fire. So now we're using cap and trade dollars, climate dollars, to be able to fund CAL FIRE when it comes to fire management, proactive measures for vegetation clearing, and working within these rural counties. And we're able to eliminate this tax, and that's how we're able to get 6 Republicans to be able to support cap and trade, to be able to have the strongest climate bill in America. Some other quick statistics. I'm sorry I just went down a rat hole on that one, but look, 50% of our state's energy will come from green renewable sources by 2030. If we're able to pass Senate Bill 100, which was held this year, 2/3 of our energy will come from clean renewable sources by 2030. Again, we can be the strongest economy in the world, and we can focus on a clean energy future. Am I right? You all know that, because that's what you're doing every day. Let's talk about the clean energy sector and jobs. So if we take a look at the clean energy sector, over the last 5 years, clean energy jobs have grown by 14% in the state of California. Double that as the rest of the country. Our clean energy businesses saw a 26.6% increase in revenue growth over the last 24 months. 26.6% revenue growth over the last 24 months. That is significant, and again, that is double that of any other clean energy business sector in any other state in the United States of America. California is leading the way. But we do have some threats. Number one, as Ms. Hancock has said, our governor has done some amazing work, by the way, and 110% behind him, but not the biggest fan of community choice aggregators. And we are fighting to be able to keep anti-CCA legislation moving forward. SoCal Edison, PG&E would like to be able to see community choice aggregators go away. And by the way, respect them. And at the same time, though, this is about local control and keeping our profits local and driving local jobs. So that's a threat. Number two, storage when it comes to batteries and solar. That Scott Wiener bill died this year because we have a chair of the local energy committee in the assembly that held all clean energy bills. There's no data behind it, it's simply political. We need to be able to get streamlining of permitting when it comes to these storage batteries, just like we did when it comes to solar energy here in California. That is going to be the big push over the next 10 years when it comes to both residential and commercial systems. The other big threat that we have is our national public lands in California. We have 45.8 million acres of federal lands here in the state of California, 45% of our land mass. So we get a waiver every year, and we've received a waiver every year since the Carter administration, through Democratic and Republican administrations, to be able to administer our own federal public lands. The state of California does it for the feds. It saves the feds tens of millions of dollars. What we're very worried about is the Trump administration won't grant us this waiver this year, which means if we no longer manage our federal public lands, it can be opening up to oil and gas exploration as well as strip mining. We're in negotiations right now. That is a significant threat. Another significant threat is offshore oil drilling. As y'all saw during President Obama's administration in the last few days, he struck a 5-year deal with the governors of California, Oregon, and Washington to stop all offshore oil drilling off of the West Coast. This is potentially going to be undermined and unwound. There has been 8 million comments submitted to the Department of Interior. 98% of those 8 million comments were against this proposal. Thank you, California. And this is still to be determined, and what I'll say is the state of California will take the federal government to court and fight them if they try to reopen offshore oil drilling off of our coast. One of the biggest threats that we have right now is healthcare. Absolutely, hot damn. Is healthcare. And again, I don't want to get too political, but look, the original repeal and replace bill that was brought forward by Graham Cassidy, it would have had a $120 billion hit. A $120 billion hit to our budget here in California. The amended version of the Graham Cassidy bill, $80 billion hit. And the reason what they're saying is that these states like California, New York, Illinois, and Michigan followed the federal law and expanded Medicaid. So now we have 8 million Californians on Covered California via the traditional program or through expanded Medicaid. I gotta tell you, this is bad for our state's health if we move forward with this repeal and replace. And by the way, there is no replace at the moment. We're just gonna call it a repeal. And it is bad for our economy as well. And I'd like to be able to talk about where we're at when it comes to uninsured rate in California. Back in 2012, before the Affordable Care Act was passed, we had a 17% uninsured rate in California, 2012. Fast forward between 2013 and 2016, we've gone from 17% to 71% uninsured. We're at the lowest uninsured rate in our state's history right now. And I will tell you, the Affordable Care Act is not perfect, but we have to fix it, not toss it out. The number one reason for bankruptcies in this nation, medical bills, unpaid medical bills. According to Consumer Reports, we have cut our medical bill bankruptcies by 50% since 2013. And it's because of the Affordable Care Act. Again, it is not perfect, but simply repealing it and not bringing forward a viable alternative is dangerous to this nation's health. And can we quickly talk about immigration for a second? And again, we're going to fast forward here. California is home to 200,000 to 800,000 dreamers. And we'll define dreamers of kids who were brought to this country by their parents when they immigrated here. And yes, their parents most likely are not documented. But these 200,000 who live in California know no other country. This has been their home. They literally go and fight wars for us. We saw them save individuals in Florida and Houston from the hurricanes. And now we are threatening to be able to deport them. So California is also going to do something a little different than what the administration is moving forward on. We're going to be providing $30 million when it comes to legal representation, naturalization services, and college scholarships. In addition, and this has been controversial, but we passed SB 54, and it's going to be signed by the governor, to ensure that when it comes to law-abiding immigrants in this state, and by the way, we have more undocumented than anywhere else in the nation, we will not cooperate with those who are following the law. If you have a serious felony, a sexual felony, a violent felony, you should not be in America. But we have taken amendments for that bill. The governor's going to sign it into law so that we are safe for all here in California. Let's talk about schools quickly. We've gone from dead last in the nation to 44th in the nation. We got a long way to go when it comes to public education. It's the best investment that we can make as a state as well as our country. And we were poor when it comes to our results. Mississippi was 49th just 3 years ago. We were dead last. We've been able to climb 6 spots. But it's the best economic development driver that we have is our strong public schools here, and we're focusing in on that. There's going to be a big fight this year. We secured $900 million for career skills and job skill programs. We saved every career training and job skill class in the state here just 3 years ago. That funding runs out. 72% of public high school graduates in the state will not go on to a 4-year college degree. We have to make sure that we have career training and job skill programs in our public schools that move on to community colleges. Homelessness, you're going to see significant movement when it comes to permanent supportive housing next year. This county will get $4.6 million automatically for permanent supportive housing. We have 32,000 chronic homeless, meaning that they, in this state, meaning they have not been in shelter. They are mostly dual diagnosis mental health, as well as drug and alcohol addicted. We're following the Utah model. Utah, over the last 14 years, they've cut their homeless population, chronic homeless population by 40%. They've cut their budget by 30% by providing chronic homeless individuals permanent supportive housing wrapped with services. You're going to see that moving forward. Housing, as Supervisor Carrillo had said, we need 180,000 units per year. We haven't built 90,000 units per year over the last 9 years. We have a 1 million unit deficit in California right now when it comes to housing. $4 billion will be invested starting in 2019. $1 billion for veterans housing, $1.5 billion for multifamily. $300 million that will be dedicated to rural and small counties, $300 million for farm worker, $300 million for emergency housing and shelters, and then finally, let's talk about infrastructure. And I'm sorry I'm going on so damn long, but really quickly. So infrastructure. If you take a look at the state that has the best roads in America, and then you take a look at California, we're 45th. 45th. $762 is what the average Bay Area resident spends, $762 on fixing their car because of our crappy roads. If you live in Sonoma County, on north, it's $1,058 per year. So what we know is that we have underinvested when it comes to infrastructure. For every $1 billion that we spend on our state highways, local roads and streets, when it comes to improving our roads and making them safer, 14,000 full-time living wage jobs are created. We're going to be spending $5.4 billion a year here in the coming, each year over the coming decade in California, finally fixing our roads and making them safer. Sonoma County alone will get $12.7 million a year. Just the county, $12.7 million to be able to fix those unincorporated roads, which the board has been doing such a great job with. If you take a look at Santa Rosa, if you live in Santa Rosa is going to get an additional $4 million a year in road maintenance dollars, and it's about time. Happy to talk about cannabis, as that's coming as well. Good times. We've talked a lot about that. Would like to open it up, if it's okay, Supervisor Correa, for any questions or comments. Feel free to fire away any criticisms as well.
And I'm actually going to moderate the questions.
Perfect.
Because knowing Senator McGuire, he will be here for an hour and a half taking questions. This is how accessible this guy is. So, are there any questions? And we'll take maybe 3 or 4. We'll start here. Yeah.
Hey.
Hi. I would just like to ask how you feel about a carbon tax.
I think we're going to eventually need to move towards a carbon tax here in California. Being perfectly candid with you, I think that the appetite for additional taxes at the moment has waned. And the reason why I say that is we've moved forward on gas tax that's going to start coming due in November. We have the bond that we just moved forward with on affordable housing. It's $4 billion. We just passed a $2 billion bond bipartisan last year for homeless housing. And we're all going to vote on a park bond coming up here next June or November. So I think, yes, that is going to have to be the eventual approach, but I think it's going to be a few years before we actually see that moving again. Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Kind of related, SB1.
Yes.
Did I cut you off? SB1, is it really under attack?
Yes. So look, we have significant. So SB1 is
It's the gas tax.
Oh, the gas tax. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, absolutely. So here's the deal on gas tax. And I'm sorry, I don't know why I explained. So here's the deal. I think we're going to be safe with SB1, but yes, it's absolutely under attack. There's a guy named Travis Allen out of Southern California. He's running for governor. Nice guy, but he has found a really great issue for his Republican campaign. And again, we got to work together, right? So I'm not saying anything, but if you poll Republicans in this state, there's no love for a gas tax. I get it. There's a reason why the legislature did not move for 24 years on raising the gas tax, because there's not a lot of love for that. So it's going to qualify. It has qualified. A judge is rewriting the ballot language. You will have it on the ballot in either June or November of next year. I think that it will probably go down 2/3. The poll that I saw from 2 weeks ago, 2/3 of California voters, after they hear the argument for it, will vote against it. So I think it's going to be hovering between 30 and 40% as far as approval. But yes, it's moving and it's going by fast. You'll see that rewritten here coming up. Please.
Ann, we're going to go to you. And any other questions? Yeah, so we're going to take about 2 more.
What do you think of the news last week that the governor and Mary Nichols of the Air Resources Board are considering banning the sale of new internal combustion engines in California by some date like 2030?
Yeah, Phil Ting is going to introduce, or he is introducing a bill that would, I think it would phase out by 2040 now. So, candidly, representing a rural area of this state, drivers on the North Coast drive more than almost anywhere else to get to their job than anywhere else in California. I have some concerns two-front. Number one, price point. We have to be able to develop a system to be able to make electric vehicles affordable for all, whether it's rural residents or communities of color in Southern California. Number two is infrastructure. we have significant need when it comes to infrastructure. So if you are driving to Redwood State National Park, it's going to be very difficult to be able to have enough infrastructure to be able to get your car filled up with that electricity. Tesla has just put up at the mall in Eureka their first charging station up there. Just met with all the folks who are producing hydrogen cars. The southernmost station for hydrogen is in Mill Valley. The Roanoke Park station that they want to be able to build is having challenges and candidly probably won't be built. So we have to develop a plan when it comes to the backbone of the electric car highway, just like the county of Sonoma has done under the leadership of this board and previous boards of connecting rural and urban, but we have to have volume as well. So I have to see what that plan is. I think it's a goal that I support, but when we want to talk about being realistic, we have to get the infrastructure in place, and we don't have that. The VW settlement will help, right? But here's my frustration with the VW settlement. The VW settlement will probably be putting these charging stations on 5, going up through Reading, and again, we have some real challenges with our district not being served, even though we're seeing 2 million people visit Redwood State National Park every year up in Humboldt and Delmar counties. Long way of saying support the goal, can't support the concept quite yet until I see a plan that makes this affordable for all and that we actually get infrastructure in place. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, 2 more questions if that's okay.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. A number of years ago, the state backed financing for alternative energy for residences, and I remember it was a big deal at the time. That there was, the state's backing all these financial models for solar and so forth. I wonder if you could speak to that, if there's been any results for that or follow-up, or if they're going to expand that program at all?
Yeah, I think that, yes, there is going to be continued focus, and I think that's why you're going to see cap and trade, significant cap and trade dollars that are going to be invested in alternative energy sources for the state to continue to wean ourselves off of what the traditional model will be. There's going to be some hiccups along the way. We have traditional legacy utilities that are going to try to be able to block because it is disruptive to their model, and I totally get it. So I think there's going to be some politics here to be able to get through, number 1. Number 2, we have to get the politics out of some of these committees to be able to do the right thing when it comes to evidence. We have to make decisions based off of evidence and not politics. So a perfect example of that is the Scott Wiener bill. The Scott Wiener bill would have put the same type of streamlining permitting when it comes to solar storage and batteries as we currently do with solar systems. It was shelved, not because of anything else but politics. I say all of this is, I think that cap and trade is going to be a game changer to be able to change the way we consume energy and the type of energy sources that we're going to have, because we're actually going to have resources to help either subsidize or pay in full. So I think you're going to see a significant focus on that. What's going to be also really interesting is what our new governor's plan will be when it comes to our grid. So there is also a really big push at the end of the session to be able to regionalize the grid to western states. Have some concern with that because some western states don't have the same goals when it comes to alternative energy as California does. So that's going to be another big player. The other item I'm going to mention very quickly, Supervisor Creel, is we have to also focus, we have to focus on solar, but bias, we have to also look at geothermal, right? And I think that's the other really big item, whether it's our district or down in the Salton Sea, how we're able to continue to develop geothermal sources in the state. May not be as popular, but also when it comes to taking dead and dying trees and looking at turning those into power as well. So I think that's, we're gonna need to be able to develop that plan as we move forward. I know that could be controversial in some circles, but I think it's absolutely necessary. That answer your question, sir?
That's great. Take one last question.
Hey.
John, it better be good.
Sure.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again, Mike. Done a little calculations. There's about 350,000 megawatts of energy that gets produced every year through the replanting of vineyards. Potentially, right? So there is the potential to take that waste product currently and be able to put it into bioenergy, biofuel systems. It's just, of course, getting that implemented through programs where, as you know, be able to do that type of distributed generation has its internal problems with investor utilities. But in addition to that, one question has to do with Cal ISO and the dump curve and how that's being addressed with rates for regulators.
So is it okay if I take biomass first and we'll go to CalISO? So I think on biomass, so something that we're continuing to work on is doing a mandated purchase from biomass sources. So last year we had about $17 million that went into biomass. I think it's going to upgrade one plant and build one additional plant. But if we take a look at the number of dead and dying trees in this state, and we take a look at agricultural waste, byproduct, whether it's stems from grapes to old corn stalks, we could be taking a look at how we are able to put that into a biomass plant. The challenge that we have right now with biomass is that it is a little more expensive, right, than, for example, natural gas. I think that that's an issue that we're going to be focusing in on in regards to looking at additional incentives and potential mandates. So John would love to be able to talk to you more about that because that is moving. There's $90 million in for biomass this coming year for expanding plants. One is going to be expanded in Corbell in Humboldt County, and we'd love to be able to look at one in Ukiah. To be able to have feedstock as well, I think that's something that we're going to be able to rely on from the industry. So on CalISO, here's the interesting piece about this. The governor wants to regionalize the electric grid for western states, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, potentially Montana, potentially New Mexico. So right now, everything is on hold at CalISO. You're going to see a plan that will be advanced most likely next year. The governor tried to be able to advance a plan at the end of the last week of session, and it was put on hold. It's a significant decision. And where the concern is, number one, anytime we give up our destiny to others, are we really going to be able to fulfill our renewable goals? Number two, will it turn into a potential fight with other states who have coal, for example, that they're still reliant on, and other sources? So that's going to be a big, a significant issue. Not trying to avoid the CalISO duck curve, but everything is on hold at CalISO until we get this figured out at the moment. But we'd love to stay in touch on that one. Anything else? Any other questions or concerns that any of you may have?
So I'm going to be the moderator that cuts off the questions,
Yes,
Senator,
sir.
because we will be here for another hour.
Absolutely.
But big round of applause, please.
So for those folks who still have questions, Mike's cell phone is 235-9836. You can call him, you can text him, he will respond. I'm kidding, Mike. Really, I think we are blessed to have such a remarkable public servant in Mike, not only having had him at the local level and now in Sacramento in a time when truly California can lead and be the change maker that we need here in the nation. So one more time, please, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause. Okay, now what we'd like to do is invite the folks here, if you could, for the remainder of the program, we're going to do a brief sharing, if you'd like. At the beginning, we did self-introductions. If there's anything in the renewable energy, in the energy efficiency or sustainability world, an initiative that you or your entity is working on, there's a lot of us here, so if you are here, multiple of you representing one entity, one organization, we can ask that one person to maybe share. You don't have to, but this is a good opportunity to know who's here, what's happening, and maybe even an opportunity to see future collaboration and partnership. So I am going to start at the front, if that's okay. Sir, if you'd like to take the time, and we'll go around, and I will be timing. I won't be as nice as I was with the senator, so I will cut you off at a minute.